Jazz has been described as conflict and compromise. It's a genre of music free of constraints and layered in swinging beats and swaying tempos. Developed by Gabe Cuzullo and published by Devolver Digital, Ape Out is a sporadically paced top-down beat-em-up that attempts gameplay infused by jazz's frenetic improvisational tenets. Speaking to The Verge, Cuzullo said a big point of inspiration behind Ape Out was 1980's You've Got to Have Freedom, a song by saxophonist Pharoah Sanders. While I'm far from an expert on musical theory, it's an unpredictable tune with a smooth bassline jumpy piano riff and, in at least one version of the song, a surprise saxophone crescendo 45 seconds in that disappears as quickly as it appears. Embodying You've Got to Have Freedom's unpredictability as a song and jazz's unpredictability as a genre, Ape Out is about a vengeful ape escaping abusive captors and smashing anyone and anything that gets in its way. Stylistically and structurally similar to titles like Hotline Miami and Superhot, Ape Out does enough to be enjoyable but never substantially evolves past its initial concept. It relies on its jazzy inspiration, colorful aesthetics, and a percussion-heavy soundtrack to stand out more than it utilizes them. Levels are split into 4 albums, each album a collection of smaller, continuous stages, all of which have really cool, brief title sequences. In each level, you begin imprisoned, break out, and rampage through bad guys while en route to freedom. Each individual stage is lightly procedurally generated, which adds to Ape Out's unpredictability. Rather than seeing a top-down room plan like you would in Hotline Miami, your view is blocked partially by walls that stretch up to the screen. Running past doorways gives you brief peeks at what's near you, and as you get into fights, the area around you almost evolves into a surrealist painting of uneven shapes and scattered color. The ape itself controls with just enough weight to make the combat feel smooth and controlled, but light enough to keep the combat reactive and fast. It's balanced quite well. Shoving enemies into walls or other enemies kills them. If you're fast enough to grab an enemy, they'll panic and fire a shot, possibly hitting other enemies if you're able to aim it correctly. The farther you get, the more enemy types you'll encounter. Some will come equipped with shotguns, others submachine guns, and more. You'll quickly form a list of which enemies to prioritize and which to grab or knock out first. You only have 1 life to get from one end of a stage to the other. There aren't any checkpoints or health pickups. After 3 hits, you die and restart from the beginning of the stage. Ape Out's 3-hit health can make it fairly difficult, and it's not a difficulty I find enjoyable. There's no reason to explore your surroundings, no reason outside of avoiding enemies to backtrack or take alternate routes, making your attempts and re-attempts feel redundant. The light procedural generation changes stages, but not to a point that each retry feels completely new. Death often comes by chance, from enemies simply getting the drop on you, not from mistakes you're supposed to learn from or unique challenges that require trial and error to overcome. I understand the appeal of a 1-life challenge mode, and Ape Out does have a few bonus modes like that unlock once you complete the main portion, but through its 4 albums, I think Ape Out would benefit from health pickups or some reason to backtrack and explore. Each album comes with a different soundtrack that changes and reacts to on-screen events as well as your own actions. In some ways, you're actively composing jazz as you play. Push an enemy into a wall and you might hear a crash cymbal. When things get really chaotic, the soundtrack turns into a cacophony of clashes, bangs, and booms. And when the gameplay calms down, so too does the soundtrack. Ape Out's music and gameplay work together really well, a seamless transition between paces and their music. Seldom is there a drum beat or cymbal crash you don't see communicated on screen. It's clean, precise, and pretty impressive to watch. When mixed with its awesome splashy visuals, you'll have moments where the soundtrack and combat combine flawlessly, perfectly slipping between utter disarray and back into a relatively relaxed rolling beat. Most, if not all, of the music you hear while playing is is solely percussion, drums, cymbals, and the like. I kept waiting for a saxophone to chime in or a level to start with a chill, low-key bass line, something to add melody to Ape Out's aggressive beats. To my sincere surprise, it never happened, and that left me a little disappointed. I feel like there may have been a missed opportunity here. Ape Out is so intertwined with jazz, a genre of music that includes so many different kinds of sounds and instruments, but all these albums present is a long drum solo. Perfectly priced at $14.99, I would recommend Ape Out, especially for fans of the top-down brawler genre. While I definitely came away wishing for a little more, I also developed an appreciation for its loud, boisterous art style, which more than once cracked a smile out of me. It's a fun and well-made tribute to a genre of music video games don't explore all that often, and kinda made me wish they did.